Hi, welcome to Surviving Schizophrenia with Steven. My name is Steven. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm here with my dad again today.
I'm Steve, Steven's dad.
And we are going to respond to a comment we got a few hours ago, actually. Now this comment is by RCSH, and this person says, "Thank you again for these videos. I would love you to consider doing videos on these topics." And we're going to try to answer this as best we can. She says, number 1, why or how do you think you got schizophrenia? Did you have trauma or abuse? Did you abuse any drugs? Did your mother have an illness during pregnancy, etc.? So, I've never, as far as I know, have had any kind of trauma.
Right, that's consistent with what we know as his parents, Steven's parents. There's been no
Traumatic event?
that we could put a finger on. There was no physical abuse.
No, I've never been abused. I went to, right before my illness really hit, I went to Emerald Bay, Catalina with Boy Scouts.
And that was so the onset was really February of 2012. Emerald Bay with the Boy Scouts, and I didn't go. Stephen went with about a group of about 15 scouts and parents, and for a week.
It was a week, yes.
And I think that was that in the was that August of 2011?
Yeah, it must have been. Yeah.
Right, so that was about 6 months before this happened.
And yeah, I was not abused or anything. Nothing really happened there. I mean, we were camping and stuff, but nothing that would cause any actual stress or abuse or any kind of thing like that.
Right, you did do a 1 mile swim in the ocean.
That is true.
There was a 1 mile swim in the ocean.
That I did, and fair point. I did get hypothermia, I think, actually.
There certainly was no physical abuse or molestation that occurred because because you've had thousands of hours, hundreds, and probably at least 1,000 or 2,000 hours over the course of the last 10 years of therapy, and that would have come out. So there'd been
I was never abused.
Right, no molestation, no abuse.
No, it's a very good thing. I was never abused. And the mile swim. I mean, I've been a great swimmer like all my life. I was in junior lifeguards even before then.
Right.
I don't think the mile swim did much except make me. I think I did get hypothermia there, but
it was in the ocean. I think the temperature of the water was 62 degrees.
It was
63.
It
was a cold.
I was in there for over an hour.
Right. So exactly, it was an hour swim. It was a. I was concerned. When you came back, I was concerned about dehydration. That's an issue I've been concerned about because if you become dehydrated, you can fall into psychosis, or if you drink salt water, obviously you can fall into psychosis.
But I remember I didn't drink any salt water really.
Right, and when Stephen,
I was a strong swimmer. I know what I'm doing.
Right, and you did the Silver Peak, the highest peak on Catalina Island.
Yes, I climbed the highest peak around 3 a.m. We got up, and we climbed the highest peak to see the sunrise. It's too cloudy, we didn't see anything, but we did climb the highest peak and hiked back down. Took a good few hours. So, as far as trauma goes, I've never had any physical trauma either. The closest thing to that would be got a ball kicked into my face while playing soccer. But
that's right. There was an incident in late 2011 at school, so it had been in 6th grade, where a ball was kicked and it hit Stephen in the side of the head. He was wearing glasses, and came home, and I remember the glasses were kind of bent up. And
I don't remember more than that. I just know that happened.
So that was a strike to the head.
That said, I have terrible memory because of my schizophrenia, so don't take that as something.
Right, and nothing developed immediately after that.
No.
So there was no concussion. We didn't take Stephen to the hospital. He went back to school the next day. That was during the week, and it was just another school day the next day. You didn't appear to be shook up at all. I remember, I clearly remember when you came back. Your glasses were, you had to get the glasses fixed. And it's never good to have a ball hit you in the head.
No, but I don't think that was the cause of schizophrenia for me.
Was it a pretty hard strike, do you recall? Or is it
I don't even remember it. I don't think it was that bad.
Okay, so.
And as far as drugs go, I've never done drugs in my life.
Right, so with respect to the drugs, we don't have any drugs in the house. Never have had any drugs in the house.
Or outside of the house, at school, with friends. Never done drugs.
Right. And Stephen, when this hit, starting in February, March, and then through the course of 3 or 4 months, he had multiple blood tests for, to find out what was going on with him.
So literally anything and everything.
Right. So, and that's one thing that they did. They did extensive blood tests at UCLA Resnick Neuropsychiatric Hospital when he was admitted May 17th for 2 weeks, 2012. And nothing showed up there in those blood tests. There was no, so there's never been any sign of even inadvertent drug use. So, the onset to this whole thing was, really these debilitating headaches.
That's how it began.
So,
horrible headache.
I'm looking at a report, March 5th, 2012, out of Providence Little Company Mary Hospital in Los Angeles County. Took Stephen in to the emergency room because at this point, he had serious headaches that weren't abating. So they did a CT scan of the brain, which was unremarkable. So they say CT brain was unremarkable. Please follow up with pediatric neurologist at previously scheduled appointment. That's March 5th, 2012. Then on March 30th, we had an abnormal EEG at Torrance Memorial Medical Center. So the impression here says, most of this recording is characterized by stage 1 and stage 2 slow wave sleep. Only brief periods of wakefulness are noted, and during this time the wake pattern is not well sustained and intermixed with theta activity suggesting mild diffuse slowing, which would indicate a mild diffuse encephalopathy. That led ultimately to us taking Stephen on April 19th, or I took him, up to Children's Hospital in Oakland.
To see a specialist.
Right, to see a Stanford-trained neurologist. And we had a 65-minute meeting with a Stanford-trained neurologist at Children's Hospital. I'll read portions of this. So this is April 19th. And so he just got in to see his current psychiatrist that he sees at the end of March. So he is now on a small amount of, I think, risperidone, but a very small amount. And he's now been seeing a psychiatrist for a little over 2 weeks. This is April 19th. Fly him up to see the neurologist. And the reason for consultation, it says episodes of hallucinations, bizarre behavior, severe anxiety, and depression that have raised some concern for an underlying organic abnormality, given an EEG that was interpreted at an outside institution as abnormal, and that's the mild diffuse slowing EEG that I just read earlier. Stephen reports that he has chronic pain syndrome, manifests primarily by headaches and muscle tension / body aches throughout his upper neck and back. The headaches are reported as quite disabling, and he has not been enrolled in school over the past month and a half. Stephen also endorses occasional paranoid thoughts and delusional thinking. He reports occasional auditory and precursory hallucinations, as well as some occasional but very rare visualizations, which are no longer occurring. In regards to depression, he does report that he has lost all sense of interest in activity that he previously enjoyed, such as swimming. Current medications, risperidone, has recently been started. In summary, it is unlikely that he suffers from an organic neurological issue. So we don't know, what caused this.
We don't know. There's no real reason. You had also asked if, where was it? Sorry. Did my mom have any illness during pregnancy?
No illness during pregnancy. Stephen was, it was a natural childbirth. And Stephen, but it was an extended labor at the hospital.
I believe we were both in distress, my mom and I, as I was being born.
Right. So Stephen did have an elevated heart rate and had a temperature when he was born of about 103. And so he was taken to the pediatric ER, and he did stay there for about 2 to 3 days before we brought him home. So,
but otherwise, I was functionally normal?
Yes, all milestones were achieved.
Early even?
Normally and early. again, had great friends, so had, established friendships early on from preschool. We had a Montessori preschool for a couple of years. And then
I had there were four of us, so 3 friends. We were incredibly close, really up until the onset of my schizophrenia, when I was too stressed to be around them anymore.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I had other friends as well, but those were the most close-knit friends.
Right. So engaged, and getting, basically straight A's through up till 6th grade when it all just came crashing down.
Yeah. You want to also know how I developed insight. You said your son will take medication because he is afraid of the medication. It doesn't think he's sick. I think insight takes time to heal enough and to understand, and definitely you have to, at least for me, I had to be on medication for a long time before I realized I was ill, because by the point I realized I was ill, the medication had worked well enough to bring me out of psychosis, because I would never have known that I was ill while I was ill.
Abilify was not bringing him out. Zyprexa was not bringing. I think we titrated to 20 milligrams of Zyprexa coming out of UCLA Neuropsychiatric Hospital, and that would have been at the end of May, so into June of 2012. Titrated to 20 milligrams of Zyprexa, or 22.5, I think, and that should have been sufficient. You don't go much higher than that, I don't think. That is, a lot of people I think are only on 5 or 10, maybe 15, but I think you were on 22.5, and then we switched to Abilify and took that up to about 20, and Stephen had probably reduced delusional thoughts, but he had severe negative symptoms.
Yeah.
I mean, the anxiety was so severe. The therapist couldn't take him to the grocery store. I mean, he couldn't go to the grocery store. Couldn't go into the grocery store without having massive anxiety, panic, basically.
I remember a time we went to Whole Foods. I just couldn't handle it. My stress level was way beyond anything I'd felt before then, I guess.
But yeah, the negative symptoms were debilitating.
Yes.
To the point that the school district recommended that Stephen be placed in residential care. I think that would have been in Utah. And that recommendation came in approximately, I haven't looked it up recently, but that would have been approximately late 2013. So we're 18 months, 18 months into this, almost close to 2 years into this, and the school district is recommending, after Stephen seeing their psychiatrists and psychologists being evaluated, and he's not able to participate in life, or wasn't participating in life. He was getting homeschooling. There was home therapy, so we had a therapist coming to the home three times a week, and a home instructor coming 3 or 4 times a week. So we had someone in the house almost every day, therapist or home instructor, and but we didn't want Stephen. We didn't do the residential care,
which worked out very well for us.
Right, I think we would have lost him completely. But we had a long duration of psychosis that was not easily lifted. That took clozapine to lift.
Yes, and if you haven't seen the video "How Clozapine Saved My Life," please check that out to learn more.
And then on top of that, we had all these huge negative symptoms that went on for about really 5 years. But even today, this is 10 years. We're 10 years post, and so the insight, there was basically no insight for about 3 years. Literally no insight. And so
I think it just takes time, and for me, medication, to develop insight. And so you also said 3, the illness is so devastating for the patient and the people that love you. How do you move past grief into acceptance?
That's a tough one.
That's hard. I think I've owned my illness, so to speak, and I've accepted it, but you don't fully accept it. You're always going to feel grief from the life you had before. Yeah, you also said your father is amazing, and are both your parents involved and on board? Yes. My mom will probably be on a video soon.
Yes. and the devastation, the first 2 or 3 years, it was just a big black hole for us. I mean, it was it was just a big black hole. It was just, dark. So yeah, it's real tough time. Stephen didn't have the understanding that he was ill, and he was functioning at an extremely low level. Not going to school, just couldn't even participate in a small classroom environment through the IEP process. That we tried that. With the classroom size, maybe 6-7 kids, and just was take him up there and be coming home after about an hour and a half. And
if not, I remember sometimes we'd get there and be like, I can't do it, and turn right back around.
Right. So the process.
And I also do remember at times just crying hysterically when I would get there, because at that point I knew I had schizophrenia by that point.
Right.
And I'd be crying because I couldn't handle it.
Right. I mean,
just absolutely bawling.
And as parents, we did go to some NAMI meetings, and no one had a child at 12 or 13 years of age with schizophrenia.
It generally doesn't happen that early.
Right.
I have early onset schizophrenia.
Right.
Most people get it when they're becoming an adult, 18
right.
or so.
It's actually childhood onset schizophrenia.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Yeah, I think early onset is age 13 and older to 17, I believe, or something like that. But prior to 13, it's a very rare form of the illness. Unfortunately, it is a more serious form of the illness.
Generally can be.
Stephen had lengthy psychotic period, and that's also something that is, I think, destructive in the brain. I think there's some
when you're psychotic, it's definitely very destructive to your mind.
Right.
It just is.
And the with the CAPS, CAPPS, the CAPS program at UCLA that Stephen was involved in, not at the hospital, but through the psychiatric department at UCLA. They did so he was involved in a research project there. They
do amazing work. Please check them out if you are interested.
Right, and they mostly studied the pre-drum stage, but because Stephen's early onset or childhood onset, we approached them. I approached them. I contacted them when Stephen was hospitalized at UCLA, and they agreed to take him into their research, project. So
my situation is so unique.
Right. So we benefited because we got UCLA psychiatrists and psychologists as as a backup, or as a second opinion, essentially, to the current psychiatrist who Stephen's had, who we love.
Yes.
And she's amazing.
She really is.
I think she's an NYU medical graduate. So, but yeah, how do you? It's hard to explain. Stephen is now Stephen. He look great. I mean, so he looks great. It's deceiving.
Okay, that is very deceiving. You could look perfectly fine. You could look happy. You could look however. Doesn't mean you are.
Right. I mean,
you don't know what's going on in a person's head.
Right. One. The tricky thing is, in looking at Stephen, it's very, in a sense, deceptive, because I look at Stephen and we're here, and it seems like, well, he's well enough to do anything. Why doesn't he have a job? Why isn't he driving? Why isn't he, going to community college? Because he does have a GED and can go into community college. And I think he can get into community college even without that.
I think so, yeah.
And, it's
deceiving.
It's hard, it's because you can't see it at times.
That's the thing about mental illness and health. You don't see it, so you can't understand it as well as if you could see it.
Right. Yeah.
It's like if you got a sunburn, okay, you see it. But what if you got the sunburn but couldn't see it but still felt the pain? It's kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you also asked, you said, what if one parent is in denial? Oof.
Yeah, I mean, it's that would be very tough. And we were fortunate that Steve was also compliant with medication. That both parents, Maria and I, were on the same sheet of music as far as trusting his psychiatrist and the course of action we were taking, both at UCLA and with this current psychiatrist, and the other treatment programs that we were able to get through the IEP process, the public school process.
So I don't have an answer for you there, but do you? For that, that's hard. I don't know if we have an answer for that.
Right.
I think that depends on your situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they say thank you for your incredible work. Thank you, I appreciate that.
We didn't choose this life. This life chose us.
Yeah.
We didn't choose this life. No. This is we're living a life completely different
Than we ever could even imagine before.
Oh gosh, just 180. Yes, exactly. I mean, just would never have imagined this. So, but yeah.
Moving forward.
Yes, exactly.
Moving forward.
And you've got to seize life and move forward. But with it's good to have a spouse that's supportive and a mother that's supportive and a father that's supportive. So Stephen has that. And
so I hope that answers your question, RCSH, and probably answered a lot more. Went on for a while. Alright, so thank you for watching. I hope you have a happy and healthy rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next video.
We'll see you in the next video.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.